Continuing our examination of the appendicular skeleton, we'll now discuss the upper limbs. We find that there are 30 bones located in each upper limb, and recall that the upper limbs enable us to carry out body movements. So we'll begin with the humerus, and the humerus is a bone that's found in the region called the arm, which is also called the brachium. This is the area between the shoulder joint and the elbow joint. The rounded proximal end of the humerus contains the head of the humerus, and the head of the humerus fits into the glenoid cavity of the scapula, which forms the shoulder joint. At the distal end are two structures that form the elbow joint. The capitulum is a structure that articulates with a bone in the forearm. It's called the radius. Meanwhile, the trochlea is a structure in the humerus that connects to the ulna bone in the forearm. In anatomical position, the capitulum is located on the lateral side of the humerus. Meanwhile, the trochlea is located on the medial side. The coronoid fossa, which is located on the anterior part of the elbow joint side of the humerus, is a small indentation that's proximal to the trochlea, and it fits the ulna when the elbow joint is flexed. If we flip around and look at the posterior side, we see a large indentation called the olecranon fossa. And this fossa locks the ulna and also locks the elbow joint when the elbow is extended. So moving distally to the forearm, or the antebrachium, we find two bones that are parallel to one another, the radius and the ulna. In anatomical position, the radius is located laterally, and it contributes mostly to the movement of the wrist joint, while the ulna is located more medially, and it contributes mostly to the movement of the elbow joint. So at the elbow joint, we see that the radius has a rounded end that's called the head of the radius, and the head of the radius connects with the capitulum that's located on the humerus. The ulna has a more clasp-like structure at the elbow joint. The olecranon and the coronoid process on the ulna form the clasp that surrounds the trochlea of the humerus, and this is the joint that is responsible for the hinge-like movement at the elbow. The final region of the upper limb is the hand. The hand is constructed from bones in three major regions: the wrist bones, which are collectively called the carpals, the bones of the palm, which are collectively called the metacarpals, and the bones of the fingers, which are collectively called the phalanges. There are 8 carpal bones in each wrist. They form 2 rows with 4 bones per row. Each carpal bone has a unique name. The only carpal bone that we will focus on is a bone called the trapezium, which is a bone that makes a joint with the first metacarpal. The metacarpals are the bones of the palm, and their name means beyond the carpals, since the word meta actually means beyond. They have numbers rather than unique names. So for example, the metacarpal that's at the base of the thumb is called metacarpal 1. The metacarpal at the base of the ring finger is called metacarpal 4. So naming the individual phalanges is also fairly straightforward. However, it does require a little bit of practice. They're named by the number of the digit that they form, as well as the location of the bone within that digit. So let's do some practice naming for the phalanges. Here I've numbered each of the digits, 1 through 5, above that particular digit. The bone that's located at the base of the thumb is called proximal phalanx 1. Meanwhile, the bone at the tip of the thumb is called distal phalanx 1. So notice that both have the same number because they are bones that belong to the first digit. And here the word phalanx is the singular form of the word phalanges. So now let's name the 3 bones of the index finger. The phalanx that connects to the second metacarpal is called proximal phalanx 2. So that helps form the knuckle joint. Next is middle phalanx 2, and the bone at the tip of the index finger is called distal phalanx 2. So that's the bone that's underneath the nail at the tip of the index finger. So notice again here that all the bones have the number 2 in them because they all belong to the second digit. The remaining bones on the other digits follow the same naming scheme, the only difference being the change in number to reflect which digit they belong to. So once you familiarize yourself with this naming scheme, it makes learning the names of the toes much easier as well, because the toes also follow the same naming rules as the bones of the fingers.